All right, hello everybody. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. I am beyond excited today. I am chatting with Doc Luna and Lilith Bathory, who collectively are the amazing electro metal band Luna 13. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. This is great.
Thank you for having us.
How are you doing? How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. It's definitely hot as hell out there.
It's hot, yeah, out here in Joshua Tree. But we're getting ready for two really fun tours.
Oh, excellent.
Two tours we're looking forward to. One with Suicide Commando, and then we go right from Suicide Commando to Hocico, and that's our July. Our July is probably the busiest month we've ever had.
Oh, excellent. Wow. That's very exciting news. Very cool. And I know you've been working on some new music. We're friends on Facebook, and you posted recently, and I loved the line that you wrote, that you're haunted by bass lines.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
True.
Yeah.
I'll just be in some casual setting, and all of a sudden a really dark riff will just start going through my head. And then I have to sit down and orchestrate it and create it. And that has been going on since I was in high school. And it's like I would be out with friends, and all of a sudden music would just start going through my head, and I'd start banging my hands on like desks and then recording the ideas that were going through my mind. That was kind of how I realized I was an artist by nature, is I could not stop my head from creating music. I still can't. It's actually more active now than it has ever been in my life.
Oh, wow. Interesting. That's really cool. That's really cool. And so kind of to circle back a little bit, I kind of jumped ahead, and I apologize for that. So let's maybe start by talking about this wonderful piece of work. This is your most recent album that came out in, I believe, September of 21, right? Or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and what a great album. And this was my introduction to the band, actually. And you've put out music since 2016, 2015, somewhere around that.
Yeah, like an album a year every.
Nice.
That's what I was even saying in that post you were talking about.
Can't stop.
We've had releases that were really good releases that we really didn't push very well, because right after a few months it came out, those bass lines, my brain would start creating new music, and I would start writing new music. So we would have an album come out every year, and we are doing everything possible not to do that again, because some of these releases that were pretty good suffered. Meanwhile, Gorgo is my favorite release by us by far.
Yeah,
we want to give them more time.
Yeah, we want to push this one. We want to push it out for a while.
Good. Yeah, I can see that could be problematic. I mean, for the fan, it's great to have new music constantly coming out, but I would imagine also it's, it can be overwhelming. And then in terms of trying to tour and play live shows and trying to keep, fresh with the music and trying, getting new fans, I would imagine that can be complicated if you're continually making new music. And yeah, that makes sense.
It's usually like the albums don't seem to get quite enough time to be seen, or be seen and heard before the next one comes out.
Right.
Like we're on like another album, and we're like, Wicked Gods is the one that I mentioned, because Wicked Gods was, I think, one of our other, as an artist, you go through these albums that are like breakthrough albums. Gorgo to me is a breakthrough album because as an artist, I'm creating exactly what is going on inside of me. But it goes through stages, where Wicked Gods was that before this one. Gotcha. And we just didn't give it enough time. Like, we could have created more videos of it. We could have done more with that particular release, but I was already on to creating new music. And I also have a problem when I start creating new music, I start losing interest in everything I was doing, because I'm constantly trying to upgrade as an artist. So even right now, I'm working on some things like I'm capturing another new type of sound, which is one of the great things about doing the style of bass metal as part black metal, part bass music, is electronica. To me, I used to be a bass player, but what you can do with electronica, when I sit down to create music, you have so many options of what you can actually do creatively that I didn't personally have as just being a bass player.
Interesting. Yeah, and yeah. So for listeners that may not be familiar with your music, it's yeah. I mean, I in the intro I called it kind of electro metal.
That's correct. Yeah.
Kind of but I don't think that really captures the essence of what you guys are, which was really new to me in a lot of ways. I'm kind of a traditional metalhead, but I was, especially seeing you live, then you opened for Christian Death, was where I saw you. I was transfixed and really mesmerized by the sound and, just this kind of really interesting combination of, like bass, electronica and black metal, industrial rock and metal, all kind of, for lack of a better term, I guess, just kind of this montage of sound. And it was really fascinating and beautiful, like darkly, hauntingly beautiful, and really fascinating just to watch and experience and hear as well. I was really, really amazed. And what I like too is that comes across on the album as well. There's so many times I think, we've all probably experienced where a band live does not sound the same on the album, and sometimes not in a good way. Whereas you guys really are so good at translating, the studio sound to a live setting with theatrics, which is incredible, really incredible. Like I said, I was transfixed. Yeah, really, really amazing stuff. So, sorry, I just kind of rambled on there for a minute. I didn't really ask a question. I just gushed. I was curious, how did this all start? How did you two get together and kind of bring these multiple styles of music into this really cool element that you've created?
Well, I'll let you start, because he did start the.
It was once a solo project where,
interesting.
When I saw, but there's so I don't want to make this a long story. It's like I was a bass player. Right. Yeah. I was a bass player in bands, black metal bands, for a long time, growing up, high school. I was in my first black metal band when I was 13.
Oh, wow.
And it was good. It was really good. As a matter of fact, I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention to videotaping and stuff like that when I was younger. But as I started getting older, I ran into, and I think I talked about this to you in person, I ran into some health problems. I started going to India to recover from a heart condition and Epstein-Barr. And one of my diagnoses was pretty critical too. And so when I was going to India, I couldn't bring my bass. So I brought a synthesizer, which in my head was so I could keep creating bass music for my bass guitar, just keep creating lines. But then when I started really getting into what I could do with electronica, I came back from India and I had this concept. I wanted to create bass metal. And also there was like this whole EDM scene coming out and people were saying, oh, it's so brutal. And I'm like, man, that is not brutal at all. I'd hear like Skrillex and like Dead Man, people using words like brutal, and I'm like, that is not brutal.
Right.
I saw the Prodigy live.
Oh, cool.
And they were super heavy, and it kind of just confirmed that if I did a really dark version of this, that it could potentially be one of the heaviest sounds people have ever heard. And that became the beginning of Luna 13, was the idea of actually creating a bass music project that was sincerely brutal, that even a metalhead, which I was a black metal elitist growing up. If you would have told me I was doing what I'm doing right now when I was in high school, I would have thought you were an idiot. I'm like, oh, I would not electronica, hell no. Right. But this concept came, and also I was evolving as a person too, musically. And so I decided to, create a demo with Luna 13. I got signed immediately to Cleopatra Records. Within 48 hours, I got signed, which blew I was so shocked by it that the email back from Cleopatra, I didn't even believe it was real. I just let it sit there. Till someone literally called me and said, are you going to sign that contract or what? I'm like, that's real? So I opened up like, holy shit, I just got signed. This was immediate. And it was just a really dark version of bass music. And then after getting signed, I wanted to go heavier. I wanted to start making this really heavy. I headlined Burning Man by myself in 2015. And the lady there said, why don't you have something more visual? She said, your music, that was so cool what you did, but I just feel that if you had like a female up front. Now, why that mattered to me is when I started going through my health recovery in India, I did become a devotee of the goddess Kali. And because one of my diagnoses had a terminal element to it, I wanted to deal with a goddess that dealt with death and dying. So I became very connected to the spiritual path in India called Agora, which means to meditate on death and meditate on the things you're uncomfortable with. And so I was already a worshiper of the goddess. So when she brought up the idea that you should have a female in front, it just occurred that would be the actual perfect thing for this. And even having a female be a lead was something that was completely natural for me already, because I was already in this consciousness of dark mother worship. So I put out an ad. A couple people addressed it, which are their own stories, but then I had once met her at a party beforehand, and I knew that she worked at a year-round haunted house.
Yeah, I was at a murder mystery party.
And, I don't want to get too personal with her, but she was a cutter when she was younger. And she has a bunch of cuts all up and down her arms. And that mattered to me, that I knew that if she was able to capture that feeling and that energy she had, along with this dark base metal project I was creating, the combination could be really dark, like something that was shockingly aggressive and dark. So meanwhile, she joined, and when she joined, I'm like, we already have a bunch of shows lined up, because when I was solo, I already had some shows lined up. So I said, you're going to come on, and you're immediately going to be going on tour and doing shows. And she came in at the right time.
Nice.
And the first show, she added just a tremendous amount to what was going on.
Wow. Wow, that's cool.
Well, I don't know if I was able to add that much for the first show. Well, like the first show, I sent in the audition, and like we had started doing some rehearsals at Cascade Studios before it got closed down in LA, and before the first show, just like 2 days beforehand, on my way to go get picked up, ended up in a car accident that really I found out that I have scoliosis, but it got like tweaked even more because of the accident. And so I was like, oh yeah, no, I'll be fine. I don't want to miss the opportunity. I got on stage anyways. And it actually took more physical therapy to actually get full movement, but we definitely we did the first show.
That's a side story that I don't think she's ever told before. Yeah, she was in a pretty significant car accident just a couple days before our very first show.
Wow.
At the Echoplex, too, out of all places, a major venue in Los Angeles, and she decided to do it anyways.
Wow. I would imagine that wasn't easy.
No, I wasn't technically fully mobile yet. I'm not gonna say like, oh yeah, I just powered through it and everything like that. I was quite stiff, but we made it through that one, and then from there, it just sort of over time turned into from playing with the whole with me doing the vocal samples, because I hadn't been doing live vocals yet. I was just entertaining in front.
Right, just let me address that. When she joined, wasn't singing. She was doing vocal samples and doing performances.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so eventually playing around with the vocal samples, because I had played around in a haunted house, and it's fun play around with your voice, scream, all that kind of good stuff. Started playing around with like working on like screams, and it just kind of like spawned from there. Like I was like, I want to do that. And it's like if I can do this, I want to do that. And I had never even thought I was before all this, like I had taken, you know, dance classes and stuff like that, but my only band experience was within like orchestra and marching band, because I played like clarinet, oboe, violin, a little bit of piano, like, you know, stuff like that. Like and then a bunch of other various instruments, because my dad is a music teacher. And so I was able to, like, you know, like if he needed like somebody to play a treble C fucking clarinet or something like that, I'd be like, hey. Like, so get to, you know, try all kinds of fun instruments, and, you know, learn how to, you know, read music, all that good shit. But yeah, I had never been in a, you know, rock band or anything like that yet. So yeah, that was I forget where I was going with that.
But that tied it together.
Oh yeah, with the vocal screaming, like I didn't technically like have any like training with that. Like I was always just, you know, musician, not vocalist.
Okay.
And so I found this a teacher who made a video called The Zen of Screaming.
Oh, interesting.
And
that was perfect timing.
Yeah, he's letting us know right now.
Over here, I don't know if you can see it.
Nice. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, I wanted to, you know, learn how to do it right, how to, you know, practice it without, you know, messing up my voice or anything like that. And so kept working with that, and, you know, from there it's like it's gone from like, because I had started out as a visual kind of component with the dancing and the theatrics, you know, I'm gonna bring what I started, what I came from, and meld both together, and that's pretty much how it started forming what I do now.
When she first started, because I wanted her doing some scream samples in the music I was doing to just kind of throw into my music. When she started doing them, I could tell she had a really solid metal female voice. Like I could tell that she would make a really good singer. And also, you know, with this project, when we started talking about it, I was like, I also want this to be, I want your vocals to be brutal all the time. You know, like Chuck from Death. I said, I want like a female version of that, and consistent. Like, you know, because a lot of these bands I like that were female fronted eventually got lighter over time. I wanted this to stay very brutal, and I'm still on that to this day. And that was a really good choice, because where her power vocals are is in that style of singing.
Yeah. Agreed. Especially in that live experience. Yeah, that's very true. So with the writing, so is it a collaborative effort? I shouldn't assume. Are you writing the lyrics, Lilith, and then
most of them now, but okay. Previously, like when we first started out, he wrote all of them. But when it gradually started moving into me doing vocals, I wanted to start taking over, you know, my voice more with like what I'm saying and stuff like that. So obviously, like he writes his own lyrics, and then sometimes depending on the song or what kind of like what he's going for with the song or something like that, he'll have something that he wants to work with, and I'll add to it and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's a mixture of both. She
does 95% of the lyrics. Occasionally, as I'm creating music, I'll have a phrase that goes through my mind that is generally something shocking, like something dark, something shocking, like upside down. I'm going to turn the cross upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Like something shocking where I'm like, I would like that, but you can create all the lyrics around that one phrase. I just will have that phrase. But I spend a lot of time writing music. I write all the music, and I start with a bass line that's in my head, and then I just start adding drums to it, and I just start expanding it into a song. And then when I'm done with the song, generally I will give the song to her, and she will write the lyrics over it and format the vocals and all that. So it is definitely collaborative. But I write all the music. I would say she writes 95 to like even 99% of the lyrics. Only thing I will write is an occasional phrase. Like I'm writing a song right now, and I just have one phrase I want to use. I want her to use the rest of it. So she does most of it, most of the writing and the lyrics. We got a crazy
He's
one
trying
on
to get
here.
into stuff underneath the desk.
Well, and it feels like, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but it feels like the lyrics are very personable and are very personal and very honest. And that's one thing that I also love about your music, and just in talking with you, you know, today and before, is you're both very open people. I mean, you know, the willingness to talk about some pretty personal stuff. And I think you express that in the music as well, which and especially on the stage, visually, I think you do that as well, which is very cool.
I noticed throughout like interacting with people that moments like that seems to spark even like a moment of inspiration in them, or like help towards like being able to see their situation in a different light, or in a more like, I can still do this kind of light, or like, you know, or like whatever the situation may be. I don't know. But I've just seen a lot of more positive come from, you know, just opening up those dark spaces and, you know, letting it all open.
Yeah.
It has created more healing than anything else. And heck, if it can do that, if good can be created from all that, then that's all for it. Seeing people who have gone through similar things that I have, seen like, you know, a different spark of hope within them that like I would have loved to have seen during that time in my life. It's totally worth it, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's funny how that is, we've actually been through stuff as human beings.
Yeah.
I believe that is why, I mean, because I do a lot of the booking for this band, and there'll be black metal venues that won't play us because we're too dark. And oh no, that's true. There was one in Texas, I'm not going to mention their name. They're like, I saw your video Upside Down. I'm sorry, that's too dark for us. I'm like,
that was one of our lighter videos.
I'm like, so you have Tomb Mold playing there next week. I love Tomb Mold. He's like, you have them playing next week. I mean, that's a black metal band. They talk about like ripping Christ's head off.
Yeah.
It's like, but I believe because we are open and we are putting that, I think people can feel there's a certain truth that comes out of the darkness. And personally, I'm very devoted to the dark goddess. I mean, it's a very real thing. I mean, I have a statue in my room, and I meditate on the moon here in Joshua Tree at night. It's like, and I think it does come out in a way that people like that feels real. Yeah. Like we're talking about Lucifer, hear my call, awaken everyone. We're not joking. We're not sitting on, you know, on a couch, not just watching TV and not really participating in that. We are very active in these spiritual dark lifestyles. And I think people feel it. And because there's been a few times where I'm like, the venue would choose not to book us because we're too dark. And I'd go look at the bands they have coming. I'm like, well, that's intense. And then we've had other people pull us aside and say, well, there's just something about what you guys do. It just feels like next level dark. And I'm like, that is because I think our story's in it. I think there's a truth in us that we're actually devoted to this kind of darker lifestyle that bothers people. Meanwhile, the darker lifestyle is not malicious. It's just a devotional thing to understanding the shadow side of life.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing too, especially with the theatrical element, the visual element of your live shows is, I mean, there are shocking elements, I guess you could say, but it's also very honest. It's not campy. It's you know, I mean, there visually things that are, for lack of a better term, they're startling, I guess you could
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
But also it's truth, it's real. And I think I don't, hopefully I'm not putting words in your mouth or anything, but it feels like it's a very cathartic element as
Yeah.
well, I think.
I've actually, well, sorry, that just reminded me like one of the awesome moments on that tour was a woman came up to me and told me that watching me eat that fetus on stage was one of the most cathartic things that she has seen in a long time as a woman.
Wow.
Because the whole, Roe versus Wade thing was going down at the time,
Yeah.
like you see it. Like, that's what it's there for. The whole, it's not just to shock people. There's so many movements throughout the whole thing that when, unless the night goes awry,
All right.
sometimes it happens, sometimes I mess up, but but it's all timed with words and movements in a way that's all supposed to have meaning.
Yeah, very symbolic. That's one thing that I really liked about it. Very a lot of symbolism within what you're doing visually, as well as with the music too.
And not to interrupt you, but that her chewing on the baby to me had dual meanings. One of them was what she's referring to, and I'm kind of into old darker paganism, and as images of Saturn eating his own baby.
Yeah.
That when she started doing that, that was the first thing I saw, was just time eats its own children. And so I was down. I thought it was really aggressive for her to do it, because these are her ideas. These are not mine. She takes the full reign of what she does up there is all hers.
Yeah.
And I tell her, I'm busy up there. I got a lot of shit I have to do. I don't have time. So go entertain and do whatever you want. She has no instruction from me at all. It's all her doing. But when she's like, I'm going to do this because of what's going on in Texas. She really wanted to do that in Texas.
Yeah, we started that. We played it in Texas.
Yeah, we did. But for me, I saw the Saturn eating his children in it. And that old time eating its children is what I saw in it. And I totally was like, that's awesome. But her message was completely different than what I saw in it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. And that's what's, I think, a sign of compelling, interesting music is and art in general is when the artist isn't telling you how to think, but they're presenting something to you and like, here, this is my presentation of this. Take it as you will. For me, find meaning in it.
Like, I'm not forcing you how to think or anything like that. I'm not trying to entice you with my burlesque. I am making statements that are just true to heart and to sometimes blatantly protest. And it's all,
one of the darkest things I have ever seen in music when we were in San Antonio. And we love playing San Antonio. I don't know what it is about San Antonio, but that's where we have a really big draw. We headline out there. It's a really fun place for us. But I'm behind the facade doing what I do. She's like chewing on a baby and she's holding in her hand. There's blood all over it. She's shaking and everyone's cheering. There's like 100-something people. And I'm like, this might be one of the darkest things I've ever seen in music. Everyone is full on cheering on a bloody baby.
Right.
In this crazy climate dealing with Roe versus Wade. I was just like, how nuts is it? And I love shit like that. When I'm even shocked. I was even like, that is fucking dark. I was watching her wriggle it and people just cheering and you hear people screaming in support. I'm like, and then it's even fun to entertain the goofy conspiracy crap out there. I'm not really much into any of that, QAnon crap. matter of fact, I hate that stuff. But I think it's fun to entertain those ideas. It's like, oh, see, there are these people eating babies.
Oh, look at the
right.
They are. And I think it's fun that's what the horror element, because we're also big horror fans.
Cool.
Just a pure horror element of just what you're watching is good enough too.
I mean, really, if they get, heated about it, it's like, look at you getting more concerned about a fake fetus than the lives of the people who have already been born, who are going through hell over this.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent point. That's an excellent point. Have you had any, and I would imagine you probably have you had blowback because of the visual presence on stage? You know, have you
They
had?
haven't said anything to me yet. They just, I saw some people leave at certain of the shows.
El Paso, we saw, we had a
Our crowd
photographer.
loves it, yeah, because they understand.
Yeah.
We did have a photographer that took pictures of us in El Paso, and you could just like, she's like, I'm not even gonna send these to you guys. I want nothing to do with what I just saw at all.
Wow.
Although I have long-term people who have come to the shows who have loved it before and then saw that for the first time, who are parents, and saw that for the first time and understood what it was all for and everything like that, and actually loved it because of that.
Cool.
Like, so it's not, I'm not trying to, like, you know, hurt any parents' feelings. I'm trying to, you know, like you're saying, I'm not trying to force you what to think. I'm just trying to, you know, make these statements to, yeah.
And our skull is real too. That's a real human skull up there. And so
I wanted to ask you about
that's
that.
Harold.
We call him Harold.
Yeah, and you know, fascinating about him is I got him in India. And people think, well, and so how did you get the thing from here to India? You know, if a skull is sanitized by a doctor, a lot of people don't know, it's legal then.
Yeah, it had to be properly.
And I had a certificate and everything, and he was a Buddhist monk that died on a railroad track. You could get the story, and he was a type of spiritual person. He was a Tibetan Buddhist, where he would want someone like me that was going to honor that being to have his skull. And so I bought that skull in India. And so it's very sacred to us, and we call him the third member of the band.
Nice. Have you written a song about him?
That I think we should do.
We need to
He's
do
had
that.
some.
He's
been in a lot. Like he's been in more shit than we have, I think.
I don't know if you heard that story, how when we were in Mexico, where we were crossing the border, they asked us to go to the side, so we were getting inspected. We're like, we don't have any pot, we don't have any alcohol, we're
but
good.
I was covered in fake blood.
She was filled. We're going to the border. And they asked us to pull over. She's filled with blood, and then it dawns on me, holy shit, we have a real human skull back there. How in the hell are we going to explain to Border Patrol what the hell that skull is?
Like, we have the receipt.
But yeah, and luckily it was in a box, and he just passed it like we were. But I was nervous, going, "Uh-oh, if he finds that human skull, what the hell is going to happen right now?" And so that element of fear did descend on us when he was going through our car.
Wow, that's funny. I wanted to ask you, and I know we've been talking about the visual, but I'd like to delve more into that if you don't mind. Just the stage presence, the theatrics of the show itself, and there's all sorts of cool elements to it. I mean, one, just visually how you're dressed, what you're wearing, your mask, Doc, and even your board and you know what you have on there. I would imagine there was a lot of thought put into all of this, all these elements, and I was kind of curious, has that been an evolutionary thing, or was this kind of mapped out early on in the band?
It's actually like evolved. Like it started out just kind of decorating things the way we kind of just like wanted to and like to, in a way that we felt fit, like, you know, what we're trying to portray up there. And then it's definitely changed and evolved over time, though. Like I even still have my first outfit in my closet, like saved up because I made it.
I call my
sorry. I like, instead of like going out and getting a lot of, sometimes I do get fabric or like materials that I need, but for the most part I repurpose to try not to add to all the ego issue.
But she makes everything that she wears on her own. She makes everything. I call my facade the throne of Hades, and that was orchestrated at the very, very beginning.
Cool.
That it's like you're in a seat of power up there.
Mm.
That's one thing people don't know. It's like, you know, because, you know, being that you're bass metal, you are part pre-recorded, you are part live. Meanwhile, everything is mine. Every single sound. I don't download loops. I create every, as a matter of fact, this is the hardest music I have ever created in my life. And I've been in a bunch of bands. So when like bands get on me for doing what I do, I'm like,
But we don't use any of their stuff.
I'm like, you have no idea how hard this is. This is a really difficult project. But there's moments where you just feel power being thrown all over when I'm sitting in there. And so I called it the throne of Hades early, because it's just like dishing out and throwing power out everywhere. And mine was it's evolved a little bit. Lately, I've been evolving it more and doing more, adding more live drums to what I'm doing. But she keeps evolving her look pretty consistently, actually.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was really blown away by with seeing you live was there's just this wall of sound, and then it's two people. It's like, this is incredible. Like, this really, and I have to admit, so I had read about you because I was going to go see Christian Death, and then like, oh, who's this? There's this band called Luna 13. I didn't know who you were.
Yeah.
So I read about it, and I'm like, electronica music. I'm not really into electronica music. We'll see what this is all about. And I purposely did not listen to you before the show. I kind of like to do that a lot of times when I'm
Just to get a
want
fresh.
to hear it fresh. And yeah, as I said, I was really taken aback. I mean, it really was incredible. Just the musicianship, as you said, it's very complex. There's a lot going on. It's not just samples and loops and things. I mean, there's a lot happening there, and it was pretty obvious that a lot of thought was put into the music, and that and there's a lot of passion there too, which I think is important for any art. In my opinion, and it was very obvious that that's the case with you guys.
That's the metalhead in me, as I call it. There's no way that I couldn't orchestrate this in a way that was fully live. I had to, and it's a very difficult project, because if I make a mistake up there, which we have had shows where I can shut the whole damn system down on accident. And that's happened. Like, we opened for 45 Grave, and it was a show I made a serious error, boom, shut the whole thing down, and we were done. It was like, we were almost done with our set, but we were so far in, there wasn't enough time for me to go and recorrect the problem. We've had that's happened to me probably about 6 or 7 times. Wow. The other time we played in Salt Lake, the band we were playing with was like, I want to see behind him when he's playing live. I want to really see what's going on with him. So he stands behind me. I didn't know he was there. And I turn around and see him there, which causes me to push the wrong button and shut the whole damn thing down.
And then I'm just standing up there yelling into the air.
So it's a tough project, but I love the evolution of it. And so when I'm hitting those buttons, you feel the power underneath you. And I've never been in a project that has this level of power in it, ever.
Yeah.
And, I also at the same time, all my favorite bands use guitars and stuff. I'm not anti-guitar. Right. I love guitars. But this is a project I specifically want to display how powerful electronic music can actually be. There are things I cannot do that only guitars can do, but there are things that I can do that no one with a guitar could actually do. And so I stick with where the power points are with electronica. And it's a real monster. I mean, like, every time we're up there on stage and we are on a good sound system, you feel like you're abusing that audience. Like, you can feel it, like power just rolling out. And then her vocals and the visual part. When we played in Orange County, this guy came up and said, when she just pulled up the wings, he was like, I went in a pure terror. Or like, what is going on here? I got afraid. Yeah. And he's like, I'm Christian. I was like calling for Jesus when I was watching you guys and stuff like that. I'm like, it's so awesome though that you can evoke that type of energy when you're performing. And I love the fact that it's 2 people, because it radiates to me kind of this like king and queen of the underworld, 2 people up to do damage. And that's why I call mine the throne of Hades, and she handles the Lilith part. And when the energy gets going with just the both of us, you can just feel the intensity level of just 2 people. Yeah. And I don't feel if we had more would add any intensity, and I think would be a distraction to what we are actually doing.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think, there's there's a certain amount of majesty almost in, where you're like the king and queen of darkness up there on the stage. And I agree. I think if there was anything else happening up there, it would take away from that. That's a really good point.
The biggest criticism we have people that will, especially industrial bands specifically, will always have a band member, oh, you guys should actually turn this into a band. I'm like, what? And turn us into like the next Slipknot?
We aren't already.
We are already completely original, completely revolutionary, and I believe ahead of our genre, like light years, but people want to stick you in some type of box that they're in, and I refuse to do that. Refuse. This is going to be the way that it is all the way through.
Like, yeah, we can definitely, like, the way we set up on stage, like the way he's lit up, the way he's set up, the way everything's like all lined up and everything, that can be more extravagant and stuff like that. But we don't really need more people unless it's going to be like, you know, like a couple of like little like a little bit of like theatrical, like a little bit of theatrical help. Like
that is true. Yeah. Now, when we become a headliner, and if we get the production behind us of what we want, there'll be a real horror show. I mean, I think it'd be one of the best live shows you actually ever see, and it'll just be two people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it already is pretty spectacular, I think so.
And
even on a I saw you on a very small stage in a small venue, and it just was huge. It was a huge sound and a huge, the visual was huge. I mean, you guys really, took over that venue in a lot of ways. It was great. It was very powerful, both, sonically powerful and visual powerful experience. I would highly recommend for anybody to see you guys. And that actually pigeon-tails into my next question. So you mentioned you have a few shows coming up here soon, and then kind of what's the long term? What do you have going on in the next 6 months or so?
we've been trying to nail that. Well, like we can't really post them yet, but we've got like some other like bigger events.
we have one we can't say yet. That
Some like convention type stuff, and
Oh, cool.
we'll just say it's a paranormal convention.
Oh,
The first one they've ever had, and we were asked to headline it, and that it'd be major. Probably one of the biggest shows we've ever had.
it'll be really fun.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. So we talked about this a little bit, but I was curious about your influences, kind of starting out as musicians when you were young. Who were the people you were listening to? What was kind of, how did you originally get into music? And who were those musicians that kind of inspired you to play?
Well, me, I started out with well, thankfully I was able to start out with like, some good, like, starters like Jimi Hendrix and Earth, Wind and Fire, and like some stuff that my dad would listen to. And my mom like got me into like Pat Benatar and like Blondie and all, and like, so it's like it was that type of stuff was fun, but they were very strict about because of like I was raised Catholic originally.
Oh, okay.
So very, very Christian values, and so like no scary rock music with the Cookie Monster voices, as however my dad would say it. But like oh man, there was like so many things that I would find that I'd be like, wait, that too? Like even a hymn song, Wings of a Butterfly, like that one got denied, and I was like, and they would want me to listen to like this like Christian rock that just made me want to tear my soul out. It made me feel so miserable. I don't know how else to say it. Like it had the complete opposite effect on me, and I wanted to like throw my headphones. So like I didn't really get to like necessarily grow up with certain types of music until like I started like sneaking it around like at my friends' houses and stuff like that. Like, you know, once I started getting older, because originally I was homeschooled up until junior high.
Oh, okay.
And so like my my neighbor, thankfully, I was able to like sneak over there and learn all about like you know, Britney Spears and Sync and all them, like when all that was going on, Ricky Martin and all that. And then so that was always fun over there. But then like I didn't learn about things like Corn or like Slipknot or OTEP or like all that until like I started getting into like high school, and I was able to like hang out with my friends. And sometimes my friends would just like stick an earbud in my ear and be like, "Hey, listen to this," and be like, "Yay!" or like, you know, get music from my friends. So like you know, start like eventually I did get into finding, you know, just the, you know, the love of my life. All the music outside of all that is like the like man, like let's see, it was OTAP was a really
She's got
big one.
perfectly flawed tattoo on her back.
Oh, cool.
Arch Enemy, Angela Gossow, like
I love her.
I love hearing women roar because it's not like so much of what people would show me was, you know, so many like, you know, guy bands and stuff like that, and you know, cis males is like it's like I know there's women out there doing it too, and I wanted to feel that connection, that like, you know, from a voice that I can connect or that I can identify with and stuff like that. And so, you know, I really did connect with those two quite a bit. And let's see some other ones. My brain often goes quite like I if I were to sit down, I should really just make a list so that when I do these interviews, I can be like, oh. But like yeah, it was man, it was them, and I really I listened to like, you know, Mudvayne and David Bowie and
Cool.
Queen and Slayer, and like I mean there was no timeline with me. It was just
Cool.
it was all over the place from every timeline, anything I could find that I loved.
Nice.
So yeah,
That's good. That's a good.
wraps that all up.
Mine's real simple. I was like not even like in elementary school yet, and I heard Metallica's Battery, and it just blew my head off.
Wow.
Metallica's Battery, I heard that when I was so young. I don't know if I'd be doing music if it wasn't for that song.
Cool.
I heard Battery when I was, I mean, like I'm saying, when I was really, really young, I wanted a bass guitar in kindergarten. And so it went from Metallica to Slayer, Possessed, which was so cool about Possessed was we got to open for Possessed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we opened for Possessed
Yeah,
and Whiskey.
awesome.
We know them now.
Cool.
They actually gave us amazing comments about what we're doing with the band Possessed. So that was huge for me because when I was 6, I stole a cassette of Beyond the Gates from an actual store because there's no way my mom would have let me buy that at that age. And I got to tell Jeff that in person. I'm like, I was like a baby stealing Gates, you know, Beyond the Gates. And I even had a picture of that actual cassette. But for me, even to this day, in all the evolved forms of black and death metal that are out there, that 80s form of death metal has never left. Like, I still believe that, you know, Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning were the best albums ever written, ever. I don't think anything comes near Metallica. Then I don't like, really, I'm so disappointed that I don't like them anymore because of the way they were my elementary school years. I mean, I was into them when I was a kid, but I hope that their next album they do pulls me back in because I'm dying to be a Metallica fan like I was when I was a child. But no, for me, Metallica was that Master of Puppets album. When I still listen to it this day, and I'll still listen to that album all the time, I believe that's the best rock album ever. like my dad, it's like Led Zeppelin and Stairway to Heaven. Like, for me, that's Metallica. Early Metallica, just, I think if they didn't exist, I wouldn't be doing music right now. When I heard them, I immediately identified something so core in my spirit. I'm like, I'm doing music.
Cool.
And that was my elementary school. When I was in junior high, I was already in punk rock metal bands. And, you know, by the time I was in high school, I was in bands that were already on tour. I left high school to move to LA to join a signed band.
Oh, wow.
I went to an audition, and I'll never forget, it was a band called Kill the Gods, and the drummer was from a British goth band called the Bolshoi. And I, oddly enough, had heard that song Away from the Bolshoi before. And so I went and auditioned for this band that had this like famous drummer in it. And I walk in the door. The truth is, I was 14 years old. They did not know that. They did not know that. And I had a mohawk, and I walked in the door with a 6-string carbon bass. And they literally said to me, if you can play that damn thing, you got the job. You got the exact look that we want. Most of us are older guys. We want some young guy in this project. And I just started slapping the bass, and I got the job right there and then. And we started playing. And then I got diagnosed with the health issues when I was in that band, and started going to India. And I left music for 6 or 7 years, and then came back to it when my health was better, and created Luna 13.
Cool. Did you always gravitate towards the bass?
No, I wanted a guitar. This is we both come from fathers that are musicians. My dad is a musician still to this day. My dad is in his 70s, still playing live now.
Good for him.
And I said, Dad, I want a guitar. And I was listening, I heard, and my dad never heard Metallica either. And this was coming from just some random, he was like, he even had the awareness, like, that's going to be huge right there. This is like right at the very beginning of Metallica. And he said, I'll give you some really good advice. Play bass, not guitar. You'll always have a gig. Always. And he was right. Every job I got, I went as a bass player. I got every single audition I went to. And I was, like I said, I was doing music for, I mean, I've really been doing it almost my entire life. But it started from Metallica. The day I heard Master Puppets, it was that day I said, I want to play guitar. My dad goes, don't, go play bass. You'll always have a gig.
That's really
And I believe I'm still a bass musician, because this is bass music now. And I believe I'm an evolved version of bass music. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. That's interesting. Yeah, and yeah, Metallica was always a big one for me as well. It's what got me into extreme music. You know, I listened to pop music, I think, you know, and like classic rock, and then when I heard Kill 'Em All, I was a teenager when that came out, and just like, wow.
I was bummed that I lived in a small city, Lake Havasu, Arizona, and Injustice for All was already out when I heard Bathory for the first time. I grew up in a Christian town, and they did not want that music going through our city.
Yeah.
And so we had to go to swap meets, and that's where I stole cassettes from the actual counter to listen to it. I had to go to swap meets even to hear it. So I got into Metallica much later than I wanted to, but it was Bathory that I heard that song for the first time, but they already had Injustice for All and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, yeah, if you both came, that break, and you don't have to answer this, but that begs an interesting question. I think, you know, both of you coming from, you know, not necessarily, you know, well, Lilith, you came from a Christian background, and then Doc, you came from a conservative Christian community.
Mormon. My family is Mormon.
Yes. Very.
Speaking of Salt Lake, my grandfather had his own church up there, and even has a street named after him in Salt Lake. He was a very famous Mormon. He was a German, left World War II, and became a Mormon. And he's got his own street in Salt Lake. Wow. And he had his own church and everything. Yeah, but no, I was excommunicated from my family entirely Now, let me tell you, my dad, being Mormon, was still a rock musician. So he was, and they're not so much this anymore. My dad still plays, but he's not so much. But growing up, that was around me a lot. And he was just kind of like this hippie Mormon, you know. And his brothers and all that stuff were on missions all the time. And that was a big part of my upbringing, was that. But he was like, my dad even saw the Doors on the Strip on Sunset when he was growing up.
Cool.
Yep.
Oh, that would have been amazing. So I'm curious, like, you know, how your families, what do they think of what you're doing now? Because I mean, it's intense. I mean, you're doing some really dark shit. So it's like, I would imagine they're like, there's got to be a shock factor there.
Well, funny enough, my mom keeps up on everything online. Like, I even kept things separate. Like, I kept, like, you know, just to be respectful, you know, like, you know, I love my grandma and all that. So, like, I have, like, you know, my family page, you know, and then, you know, I have the Luna 13 stuff, and then they can choose whether or not they want to, you know, especially because, you know, I have a very different idea of nudity than, like, I guess, you know, a lot of them would. It's not about being it's not about whether or not you respect yourself. Like, I mean, it's very much, you know, do as you want. Like, you know, you're respecting yourself being yourself. Oh yes, my mom keeps up on everything, even with that, which is kind of funny to me. Even my sister, like, my sister calls it like, this goth, like goth rock queen something rather. I don't know. It's just like she sees it more like the you know, theatrical and whatnot. And then my dad has I don't know if he really even thought that it would last too long or anything like that. He's like, oh, she's just going off and doing something crazy or whatever. Like, so he hasn't really like weighed in much on it. Like, they haven't technically seen the show.
Oh, okay.
And I wouldn't expect them to either, because in, especially like you're saying, that type of like dark, loud, crowded environment, all that kind of stuff, the lights and stuff, like it wouldn't be healthy for my mom's anxiety to be in that type of environment as it is. So, like, you know, there'll be like a video or whatever that, like, you know, I can share eventually, but like they haven't like, you know, been like, oh no, we disown you or anything like that, but they've actually just been pretty neutral about it.
I would have to say that my parents, even my dad, they don't really, it's a little bit way out there for them. And kind of like she was saying, I'm like, oh, I think they're going to do this for a little bit. It's actually right now that I think they're being kind of forced to deal with it. They're actually, with the last year, this project has started to explode in our way. You know, it's like we started to have some really important, right now, I would say, as we're speaking, I can tell my family's going, what the hell's going on? Yeah, we might now have to deal with this. They're going on tour all the time, and you know, they're playing with big bands that are recognized, and they're headlining shows, and people are going to their headlining shows. And I think it's right at this present moment that they're probably sitting back going, oh shit, we might have to deal with this thing.
Right. Interesting.
This is not no longer some phase, you know, it's becoming you know, something that is a part of their everyday life now. Now, we've been like this for 7 years, but they don't know the intensity we put into this. And I think they're right now starting to realize that.
Yeah. Because I think there's a, it seems like there's a definitely, you know, Luna 13, there's a buzz now. There's a lot more press around what you guys are doing. And as you mentioned, you know, your headlining shows, you're opening for bigger bands, and you're, you know, the media wise, there's a lot more focus on the band now, which is great, which is important, and you know, well deserved for certain. But yeah, I would imagine, yeah, they can't keep the blinders on too long, because it's
Yeah, we're like, I've never been in a band that every show we play, we go look at social media, like right when we're done, and there'll just be a slew of people. This band just blew my mind. This band, I can't believe what I just saw. I've never been in a band that has that amount of attention, show after show. And we're getting a lot of love right now. I mean, we can feel that people are starting to kind of get what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and as I said, yeah, deservedly so. Very, very great stuff. Well, Doc Luna, Lilith Bathory, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much. For those of you watching, if you have not listened to Luna 13, do yourself a favor, go pick up this album right fucking now. You will not be sorry. Check them out online. There's in the description of this, if you look below in the description of this, there's a link to their pages. Check them out. It's really, there's some really incredible stuff there. And just, yeah, check out their videos. Visually, they're amazing. Sonically, they're amazing. So, and if they come to your hometown, definitely go see them. You will not be sorry. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
For bringing us on.